So apparently the Cleveland Cavaliers want in on the Cam Johnson sweepstakes. Shit. Let's talk about it. Before we get started, if you guys can do me a huge favor and drop a like on the video and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future NBA and other sports content. Joe Vardon of The Athletic essentially published an article detailing that the Cleveland Cavaliers are showing some pretty strong interest in acquiring Cam Johnson. It says here, executives from 3 franchises told The Athletic that Cleveland has expressed interest in acquiring 6'8" forward Cam Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets, one of the most coveted players league-wide in the trade market, with the February 6th NBA trade deadline fast approaching. League sources with knowledge of Cleveland's internal discussions say Johnson has been discussed as a potential target and say the franchise has done its due diligence in acquiring about the availability of Johnson. Rival team officials, however, believe the Cavs' interest to be more serious than that. All right, so I think needless to say, this is a problem. I mean, the Cavaliers, as currently constructed, are arguably the best team in the NBA. You know, we're talking Cleveland, OKC, and Boston. Those are, in my opinion, that's the three-headed monster when you're talking about the best teams in the league right now. If the Cleveland Cavaliers managed to acquire Cam Johnson, that's a problem. That is a problem, and you'll have a hard time convincing me that they are not the clear favorites to win it all this year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First and foremost, can they do it? And the short answer is yes. I mean, I don't think we would be hearing reports about the Cavs being interested in Cam Johnson unless it wasn't possible. But here's a quick snapshot as to what the Cleveland Cavaliers can potentially offer for Cam Johnson. So just to make the salaries work, I put together a trade of Max Strus and Isaac Okoro. And the salaries, that's fine. Most of the time, the salaries isn't the issue with a lot of these teams, but it's the draft capital. That's what the Nets are most concerned with. So that can get a little bit tricky. But again, just in this snapshot, I put their 2030 first round pick, which is fine. They do have a 2031 first, but it's a pick swap. It's not available outright. And I just threw in a second round pick in there. Technically, you can throw in more. But again, this is just a quick snapshot of what the Cavs can offer just to get the deal done. It is possible. You could argue that the Nets would want a player like, Karis LeVert back, someone who might be a little bit of higher value. Max Strus, he's a shooter. Isaac Okoro, he's pretty good, but you could argue that they would want someone of higher value in terms of specific player in return. But again, just for the sake of possibility, yes, the Cavs can do it. We all know who Cam Johnson is by this point, and if you don't, I can definitely give you a quick breakdown. Cam Johnson is about 6'8", 210. He has a fairly average wingspan. He has a 6'10" wingspan, and for those of you who don't know, if your wingspan is about your height or a little bit above, that's about average in the NBA, maybe slightly above average. But at the end of the day, he's tall, he's long, and what he's doing this year, he's essentially having a breakout season. He's averaging 20 points a game on 50% from the field, 43% from beyond the arc, almost 90% at the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 3 assists on less than 2 turnovers per game. So you're talking about pairing a young player, a relatively young player who's putting up arguably all-star numbers and adding them to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So at the very least, on the defensive end, you're adding length and competitive drive. Cam Johnson is not a great defender, but he's certainly not the worst by any means. At the end of the day, he can add length and effort. On the offensive end is where things get a little bit out of control. Currently, the Cleveland Cavaliers are tied for the best record in the NBA. So they're first essentially in win percentage. They're first in the NBA in field goal percentage at 50.1. They're first in the NBA in 3-point percentage at 39.7. Now, if we take a look at some of the advanced metrics, they're number 1 in the NBA in offensive rating, number 2 in total net rating, just behind OKC. They're ranked first in true shooting percentage and first in effective field goal percentage. Now, on top of that, you want to add a 6'8" wing player who's shooting 50% from the field and 43% from 3. Yo, what are we doing right now? I don't blame the Cavs one bit for being interested in Cam Johnson. I think personally he'd be a perfect fit. He would. And what we really need to focus on here is that if the Cavs make this move, The fact that they're even expressing interest in making this move is telling everyone else one thing. Yes, they're currently one of, if not the best teams in the NBA, but they've always been good. Even before Kenny Atkinson got there, the Cavs for the past few years have been a good team. But when they get to the playoffs, they falter a little bit. However, in my opinion, what this move says is that, listen, we're not just thinking about now. We're thinking about the playoffs. Think about it. What do most teams do when it comes to playoff time? They run basically an 8-man lineup. Let's say 7 to 9-man lineup, right? If you're trading 2 players and let's just say a bunch of picks for one ideal player, someone who can basically solve the quote unquote problems that, or at least the holes that the Cavs are looking to fill, length, additional scoring, consistent scoring, that is, and some defense. You look at Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. These are one of the most dynamic backcourts in the NBA, but they are a little bit undersized. So adding a wing player like Cam Johnson, who does compete on the defensive end, but still provides a tremendous amount of offensive output, is, in my opinion, perfect. That's exactly what they need. Now, one thing about Cam Johnson and this trade market is you have to look at other teams that can also put together a package for him that might be more appealing to the Brooklyn Nets. And you think of a team like OKC, for example. There is no team in the NBA that's more equipped to offer draft capital than OKC. That's my only hesitation right now, is that the Cavs just may not, if the OKC feels like, you know what, they just want to add some additional punch, they feel like then they can still improve upon their current roster, and they decide to go after Cam Johnson. They have they're Toys R Us when it comes to first round picks, okay? But another thing that is kind of on the Cavs side, not necessarily against OKC, because OKC, they're in a perfect situation. They have a ton of picks and most of their players are young. But the Cavs are also in a very similar situation. If we were to compare them to a team like the Lakers, for example, the Lakers are in a weird situation because not all of their roster is filled with young, talented players. So they're a little bit more hesitant on giving up their future draft capital. The Cavs, not so much. Take a look at their players. You have Jared Allen, 26. Darius Garland, he's 24. Even Karis LeVert, he's 30, so still in his prime. Donovan Mitchell, 28. Evan Mobley, 23. If you're talking about priming yourselves to go on a run, the Cavs are it. All of their core players, essentially damn near their entire starting 5, are either relatively young or just entering their prime. And now you're going to add Cam Johnson, who's 28. So this is dangerous. This is definitely dangerous. And I had to make a video on it because the moment I heard this news, it was like, dang, you know, we heard about OKC, we heard about the Lakers, we heard about, you know, a few other teams that were interested in Cam Johnson. But the Cavs, it was like, I didn't even really think about it, to be honest. And now that the rumors or quote unquote news is out, it's like, yo, if the Cavs make this move, man, look out. Yeah, let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comment section. 1, do you think the Cavs can actually get Cam Johnson? If they do, where does that put them? In your opinion, do you think they are the clear-cut favorites now? Because in my opinion, yes. You add Cam Johnson to that starting 5, it's a wrap. Forget about it. I don't even think there's much of a learning curve there. Yeah, he'll have to learn the schemes and the playbook and all that. Yeah. But if you're talking about just fit, size, fairly athletic, can shoot and create his own offense to an extent, he's definitely more of a shooter than a scorer. But, I mean, that's why you have Darius Garland. That's why you have Donovan Mitchell. I mean, let me know what you guys think, man. I think this is absolutely dangerous. And if they can pull this off, it's a wrap for the rest of the league. But as always, man, thank you so much for watching. I definitely appreciate your feedback. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll catch you on the next video. Eric.